Molly, I want to open our chat with just first owning the incredible privilege from where both of us come at this conversation from. It's something that I have kind of only really started to understand, I think, in recent years. And so I just want to sort of own that we are two very privileged and, in the
Yeah.
eyes of Australia and most places around the world, incredibly wealthy in comparison to a lot of what other people are going through. So I just want to own that privilege straight off the bat and sort of bring that lens to the conversation that we have today. I'm also going to put my hand up and say that I'm going to be the sacrificial lamb for this episode. I am really bad with money. I didn't think I was, but now I know I am. And I know that there are a lot of other women out there who feel like they're in the same boat. So there's going to be no dumb questions today. And my first question to you is, how emotional do you think money is? Having dedicated your career and essentially your life to helping
Yeah.
people get better at it, how tied is money to our emotional well-being and to our sense of self-worth?
Way more than it should be. Because at the end of the day, money is just this tool we use, yet it has so much emotion behind it for women because it means so much. It can mean security, it can mean power, it can be used as a tool to control us. And even our thoughts around rich people, like, we can think that they're selfish. We can think that they're amazing. We can think that they are evil. It's very emotional money. And what we need to do, I think, is actually take the emotion out of it and go, this is just a tool, generally a tool we've never been taught how to use properly. And when you said, I'm so bad with money, that's such a common phrase I hear, like so common. And I used to say that as well. I used to be, oh my God, I'm so bad with money. And that was the reason I started my business, because I would just, when I started these events in my living room in London, all my friends would be like, oh my God, I need to come to that money thing. I'm so bad with money. Oh, I'm such a mess. Or like, I don't know where it's going. And we have this concept as well that everyone else is doing so much better than we are. I would speak to women and, some of these women are in their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and they're still saying the same thing. So I think we've got to just be like, all right, so what do we do? How do we turn this around? And a big one is, we've got to actually change the messages we tell ourselves about money, because for many of us, we've gone our whole lives of never actually learning about money. So I want to kind of say, forgive yourself, because you were doing the best you could with the knowledge you had. But now, hopefully, after listening to this episode, you'll have a few more tips around what to do next.
I love that. I want to dive into the money mindset piece with you. But first of all, you just said something, and I felt it in my body. You said something about how we feel when we see rich people. And I didn't expect to get so vulnerable so early in this episode, but you just reminded me of how much it does make me feel like I am worth less, that I haven't been able to bring financial abundance into my life in the way that I want to. And I say this with all honesty, I don't want designer handbags and a big stinking mansion. I want to be able to be generous with the people that I love most. I want for my niece to be able to come to me and say, I'm doing a cancer fundraiser and will you donate? And for me to be able to say, yes, I'll donate $200 and that not even be a thing, rather than like, oh God, I really want to donate and I'd like to do more. I want to be able to, I want to know that I could look after somebody that I love if I needed to. And I do have those feelings. I have a very affluent and very high performing set of friends. And I do often look at the choices that they've made versus the choices that I've made. And it does often make me feel less than. And I feel empowered to you say it doesn't matter where you're at, where you're starting. But I did just want to dip really quickly into this kind of secret life of money, because I can't tell you how many conversations I've had with friends where I've gone over to their beautiful new house and I've left thinking, what's wrong with me? Why can't I buy a house like that? How did they do that? And then I find out some months later or years later from them or from somebody else that actually they got this massive free kick because the grandparent passed away and left them an inheritance, or something happened in their life that delivered that for them. But nobody talks about that. So you walk away, and I'm really open about that stuff in my life because I never want somebody to walk away from me thinking that I'm this unicorn that's managed to do this incredible thing. I want them to walk away feeling like, oh, good. Well, the reason that she was able to do that was because of X. Why are we so secretive about money still in 2024? It drives me nuts.
I know it's still very much this taboo topic, isn't it? Like, I know the intimate details of my friends' sex lives, how much they earn. No. I think in this day and age, like for many of us, we can just assume that parents have helped. I live in Sydney. I did not buy in Sydney. There's no way I was buying in Sydney. And that's not me having a scarcity mindset. That's me being being realistic about it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I bought in a high growth area where I could buy a 4-bedroom home, which I know is going to go up over the next few years. So then I can continue to buy and build my portfolio. But yeah, look, I think it is still very much this taboo topic. And if we look back on history, women haven't had access to their own money for that long. You know, it wasn't until the 70s that you could get a home loan, credit card in your own name. And so for our mothers and our mothers' mothers, especially I look at my grandmother, she never controlled the money. It was always done on the men's side, and it has been on the men's side for hundreds and hundreds of years, whereas this is still relatively new for women. So we haven't been having these conversations for generations and generations and generations, but it's so powerful when women get together and we actually start talking about money and we can learn from each other, because guys are doing it all the time. They're talking about what they're investing in. They're talking about money. They're talking about pay rises. We are not. And I love talking about money and I love talking about investments. And I was at a cafe the other day with my girlfriends and they were like, can we ask you some questions about exchange traded funds? And I was like, yes, let's do it. Let's talk about investing. And one of the other girls had just bought a second investment property. And it was just like, it was such an exciting conversation. I was like, yeah, more of this, less of like relationship chat.
I heard you say about our money mindset, and that not that it's fixed, but that it is embedded by sort of 7 years old. Did I get that right?
Yeah, 7 years old.
Which makes total sense that I am all over the place because my two parents held very different values around money. They weren't in a relationship together. So there was no kind of let's get on the same page about this.
Yeah.
So I had these two incredibly different experiences. With dad, we would be scratching around under the car seats for coins to buy enough fuel. And with mum, she has always been really good with money. And I'm so proud of her. She's been through a real journey when it comes to money. She's gone from, building her own personal self-worth to a point. Then she was in a relationship with somebody who was incredibly wealthy for many years. And then they lost everything.
Yeah.
And she managed to maintain her 1-bedroom apartment that she lives in now, that she owns outright. She's got the pension and she still works 3 days a week or more, as much as she can. And I am so proud and always so inspired by her. And she says to me, as does everyone I know who has had money and then not had money, said, I am like so much happier now. I really understand the value of things now in a way that I didn't before.
Yeah.
And I really like that reframe. I think probably the thing that I'm proudest of with mum is that she's always managed to make the most of what she's got. She doesn't need high fashion. She, mixes things from Kmart with more expensive pieces that she's got from when she had money. And I've always been really impressed by that. But does that kind of like duality experience, or whatever your experience was with your parents, how much of an impact does that really have on the way that we think and feel about money as adults?
Yeah. And it's really interesting you say that, because it seems like the more I speak to women, the more they'll go, oh, my parents, the opposite with money. But yeah, so the money mindset, for people who are like, what's that? It's pretty much the way you think, feel, and your beliefs around money. And if you're listening and you're like, oh, what are my money beliefs? There's a great few little exercises you can just do in a journal. Like when we were saying rich people are. And when we do this with a group of Ladies Finance Club members, it's so interesting the answers that come up. And some of them are, they're successful, they're where I want to be, they're smart. But majority of the time, they're evil, they've done something bad to get money, they're selfish, they're greedy. I can tell straight away the kind of messages that person probably got from their parents growing up. And the thing is, if you think being wealthy, you're going to become evil, greedy, selfish, what are you going to do when you get money? You're going to try and get rid of it as fast as possible. You're going to try and, whether that's give it
Sure.
away, spend it. You know, you don't want to become
Because you don't
that.
want to be any of those things. Yeah.
Yeah. When you like look at successful men, you know, you get these images of like these good looking men on boats with cars and, you know, the James Bonds. But when you look at the wealthy women, it's like Cruella de Vil. It's the stepmom from Cinderella, Devil Wears
Gina
Prada,
Reinhardt.
Gina. It's like these characters you do not want to be, especially in those Disney movies. The rich one's always the psycho mean stepmom or something.
It's
So
true.
it's like we're not given any of these role models, which is why I love Mackenzie Scott, the founder of Amazon's ex-partner. She's donated billions. I think she's been one of the biggest donators of wealth. And, you know, that's for me, I'm like, that's the power of having money. It's, well, number one, having control over, you know, your time, what you do, but also you can have such impact. You can give to the causes you're passionate about. You can help friends out, help family out. You can travel the world. And, you know, when people always say money can't bring you happiness, I'm like, you know, it can make you very comfortable.
Can I ask you this? What are your thoughts? Because I feel like at the moment, especially on social media, everyone's about either having a side hustle or being an entrepreneur. I don't want to use the term girl boss because I don't like that very much, but just generally being a boss. And what are your thoughts on working for somebody else to have a really solid, stable income, regardless of how that business is performing, essentially, unless you lose the job, versus going out on your own and having more control over that, or trying to do both? Because I feel like so many women that I have conversations with now are wanting more.
Yeah.
And I have always said sometimes having a job that you don't hate, that pays the bills, that allows you to live your life outside of that is a noble enough pursuit.
Absolutely.
What are your thoughts?
I mean, I don't feel like everyone has to have a side hustle. I'm definitely seeing the trend of women doing it. And I think there's this whole like quiet quitting at the moment in the corporate world. Like people are they're working their job, they're starting their side hustles to get to the point where they can step away from their job. But, you know, when I look at what I did with my business, like I worked full-time, then I went part-time, and then I kind of stepped away completely from that corporate job. But that corporate job allowed me security, and it meant I could skill up. If you want to start a side business or if you want to make some extra income, there's lots of different ways to do that. I dog sat for $100 a night the other day because I just wanted to test it out. I was like, oh my God, that was the easiest $700 ever.
Wow.
So, you know, there's ways that you can actually, if you're focused on just making maybe an extra $1,000 a month, there's so many ways you can actually do that. But for those who do want to start a side hustle, I go, you know, schedule 40 minutes in your diary every week or even every day and just like skill up, learn something new, watch a video, apply for that new job. Just, switch out an episode of Netflix. Like if this is a priority, you can totally do this, but you need to give it the time it deserves. And quick pitch, we're doing a free online side hustle summit in July too. So anyone can come to that.
Awesome. That sounds great. And we'll drop all of those links in the show notes too. I wanted to ask you about how money helps or hinders when you're in a romantic relationship, because my partner and I have very different money mindsets. He's always been quite sensible. I'm like, we can always make more.
Yeah.
And neither of us earn huge salaries, but we certainly earn enough for me to be able to pursue my passions and not earn as much as I would like to as I build my business. Yeah. But I think we do have very different money mindsets. We don't talk about money very much. And I feel the sense of stress in him before he talks to me about the sense of stress.
Yeah.
How do you see money play out in relationships in your own life and also in the women that you work with?
Well, in my own life, it's very simple. I'm single. So that's
That
the plot.
helps.
But I definitely think, and I spoke to lots of people about this, and I speak to lots of people about this, it's about just getting on the same page with your partner. So many times these really, really important money conversations are not had till a little bit either too late or further down the track when they should have been done earlier. So, we are always about the money date night. So even if it's like once a month, it's to go through what are our goals as a couple for our money? Like, where do we see ourselves? What do we want to achieve with it? And then also just understanding how each other approach money as well. So, like, going back to what were those early money stories? And again, because for some reason these opposites attract, like, we'll have couples where one partner grew up with heaps of money and the other grew up kind of, as you said, like searching under the couch, trying to find. So they're going to approach money very differently. One might want to eat out all the time, the other doesn't. Because people can get very, as we said, money can be emotional and people can get very defensive very quickly. So it's making sure that you approach it from a place of curiosity. There's never any blame, and you set some ground rules as well. So what are our money ground rules? How much are we allowed to spend without telling the other? How are we setting up our bank accounts? How do we make it so we've always got access to our own money in our own name if we need it, but we also have a joint account? Because I think that's so important for women, that they do have that ability to, no matter what happens in life, they have money in their own name sitting there in case of an emergency, or as I always call them, OMG funds. So getting really clear on what are your goals? When are we wanting to retire? Are we wanting to buy a property? Are we wanting to buy another property? Because then you can start putting a plan together and actually mapping out, okay, well, what does that look like for us? And like, is it actually realistic for us to do that? And if so, what does that look like? Does that look like you working 3 days a week and working on your own thing 2 days a week? Like, then you can kind of start, putting that plan together. But it is extremely common that people don't actually have these really basic conversations, especially women when they are about to go on maternity leave as well, because that's a big one. All of a sudden, you've gone from having your own money to not only not earning, but also being dependent on someone else. And I understand it can be awkward. I understand it can be uncomfortable. But if you can do it while things are really good, then it just makes it so much easier. And the research shows that couples are happier when they've got the same money goals.
When I have conversations with my girlfriends about, you kind of assess where you're at in yourself and your life and your relationship, and you sit around and you kind of talk it out. And there is such a sense of kind of disenchantment with our lives. And I think that's just because we're at this really tricky age. Most of us have just turned 40 in my age group, or turning 40, and we have small children, aging parents, big dreams and goals, and we can see the light at the end of the tunnel, but we're not quite there yet. I've still got one of my children with me 2 or 3 days every week. And it seems like a real time of reckoning, financial reckoning. Like, are we earning enough? What do I want? How did I get here? What did I do wrong, I suppose? And I always like to think about money in the context of building a life. And so I love what you say about, sitting down. Really, it is just about kind of carving out the time. And part of me feels like money is just simple maths. You might need to earn more, you might need to spend less, and then you need to take what you've got and try to grow that. So it seems simple, but in reality, there's so much like head in the sand. I don't know how much I spend at Woolies and Coles each week, but it's a lot. It's a lot. What are you hearing from the people that you work with about, we're seeing in the news about supermarket price gouging and how much of a profit they're turning, and great for them, sucks for us. I've seen for the first time in my life those security alarms on meat at the supermarket. That stresses me out so much. And I know it does for the people that I speak to. What are you hearing from that perspective? Because that's like, we got to eat.
I know, and inflation's just gone up again. It's at 4%. And so for people who don't quite understand the concept of inflation, that's a cost of living going up. So if you go to Coles and you fill up your basket with groceries and it costs $100, and then the next year you could buy the same groceries, it's going to cost you like $110. So your money's going not as far as it used to. So I always say this to people, I'm like, inflation's at 4%. If you're making 4% in a bank account, you're actually not making 4%, you're making 0%. So we're very much in this interesting time, I think, where house prices are skyrocketing. Groceries are expensive, petrol's expensive, everything, like living is expensive, and it causes huge stress. And I think, you can make a choice. You can, go, this is the worst, or reframe it and go, okay, well, we're going to have to actually get on top of that budget. We're going to have to, use this as a way to maybe cut back, or as you said, earn more. They're your two levers. That's what you've got. You can earn more or you can spend less. And so I think it's a really good time to get the budget out and, strip it back. What is a budget? It's telling your money where to go so you don't have to go, where's it gone? And it's literally just allocating money to different categories in your life. That's all a budget is. Yeah, it just scares the living daylights out of people. And I think for when I see people do it for the first time, or they haven't done it in a very long time, there's this fear, there's this shock, because they're going to find out just how much they've been spending. And, there's always a bit of waste. And I think as well, like, I know the first time I did a budget, I was just really upset with myself for how much I'd been wasting. So yeah, I think, actually going, okay, the current environment, it's not great, but what's my next move? Okay, cool. I'm going to get on top of my budget. I'm going to, if I can save some, and who knows what's going to happen in the next few months as well. So I'm definitely saying to people, this is where we want to top up those emergency funds. Download a budgeting app. I mean, lots of the banks do it now, so you can actually look at your spending and see where your spending's going. But if you're with a partner, do it together. Go, how much are we spending on groceries every week? Oh, wow, we're spending that much. I wonder if we can cut it down by $100 by meal prepping. Or I wonder if we can, shop at Aldi and Woolworths. Negotiating on bills. People don't negotiate on bills. That's money saving right there. Just call them up and negotiate on your bills. Most of the time when I speak at events and I'll be like, who's negotiating on your bills? People will go, I didn't know I could. You absolutely can, and you absolutely should be at least once a year minimum. I mean, I do it more than once a year because I always like to test it out.
What bills are we talking about? Electricity, phone? What bills are we talking?
Electricity, phone, energy, Wi-Fi. Yeah, all of it.
Okay.
Insurance.
Just ask. Ask the question.
Yep. So I went onto my energy website the other day and they were doing like $50 off for new members. So I called them up. I said, hey, can I have a discount? I noticed my bill has gone up. And because I'm looking around, I'm looking at other supplies. And the thing is, they want to keep you as a customer. It costs a lot more to get a new customer than just to keep you as a customer. So they offered me straight up, and it was like a 15% discount on my next 6 months of bills. And then I said, can I have the $50 credit as well for a new member? And go, okay. And they gave me $50, and it's better off being in my pocket than their pocket. My phone, same thing with my phone. I said, look, it's just getting a bit expensive. I think I'm going to have to look at other options. Straight up, they gave me $13 off every month. Again, not a huge amount, but if you do that over all your bills, that adds up.
It's 2 Bondi coffees.
Oh my God, Bondi coffees. Don't even get me started. Far out. The specialty milk gets you. So yeah, we've got to take our head out of the sand. And I know for a lot of people that can be really confronting. And then if that is the case, don't do it by yourself. Do it with a money coach. Get expert help. There's some really great tools, apps out there, but you've just got to there's no quick win here. You've got to sit down. You've got to make the time. But the thing is, you can do this. If you can do basic math, you can do a budget. And now would be the time.
What are some of your favorite apps? Are there any that you swear by, or one that you love that's a really easy, user-friendly one that you would feel comfortable sharing with us?
Yeah, I'm still on the hunt for the dream app, but there's some really good ones. So there's Frollo, there's We Money budgeting app, but also most of the banks, you might not even realize they actually categorize all your spending for you. So NAB do it, Westpac do it, Commonwealth Bank do it. There's a section where you can go on and it will tell you how much you're spending. Although if you bank across a few different banks, that's where I find the money budgeting apps really helpful because you can link a number of them together. So Frollo and WeMoney, and then it just literally reads your bank accounts and it will tell you, it will categorize your spending for you. So you'd be like, okay, that's how much I spent at groceries, because it goes, okay, this is everything from Coles, Woolworths, Harris Farm, IGA, whatever it is. This is how much you're spending. And so it's great to actually look at that and go, oh, okay. And I always say it's good to look at what's happened in the past and then set your new budget, because if you're just setting a new budget without knowing your current numbers, it's not going to work. It's going to be out of whack, because we go, oh no, we spend like $150 on groceries every week, when reality is you spend $300. So you've got to know what you're working with.
Gotcha. Okay, that's really good advice. We've got a budget.
Yeah.
It's gathering dust in a file on my computer. But the bit that I don't do is cross-check whether I'm actually spending that amount or going way over, which I assume that I am. Part of the challenge for me is that my income is incredibly lumpy. So it's a feast one month and a famine the next.
Yeah.
And I'm going to own the fact I don't pay anything. Oh my God, you're gonna be so embarrassed.
No.
I'm so embarrassed. I don't pay anything into my super. I don't put anything aside for tax. I know that I'm not doing the right things, but it just isn't there. Like, and of course, if I look, of course it will be there. There will be more waste than I am able, but I find it really difficult, and perhaps for any kind of freelancers out there who are listening to this, it is really hard because we don't get a pay slip. We don't get a set amount that we earn from somebody else per week, per month. Yeah. Any tips for freelancers like me?
Yeah, I completely acknowledge that it's tricky. There's a few different things you can do. So one of them is look what you earned last year and then work out the monthly amount and then just pay yourself that monthly amount. The other thing is do like the 50-30-20 rule with what comes in. So you put money aside for living expenses, you put money aside in savings, and you put money aside for guilt-free spending. But I'm so strict with myself with tax money. Like, that is such a priority for me. I put that money aside, and it's not my money, it's the government's money, and I don't want to spend that money. So I am very big on putting tax away straight away, and that just stays. And even if it means it's in a bank account that you don't have access to, like it's in a bank account that you don't look at often, because I've spoken to a lot of women who've gotten a lot of trouble with big tax bills. And then the other thing is super. So do what you can do. So obviously when you're catching up with your accountant, that's where they can work out the best tax strategies for you. The government has government co-contribution. So if you put in $1,000, they'll put in $500.
Wow.
You just have to be earning under a certain amount. It's under 50,000. So if you've been busy raising a family, or you've been freelancing but maybe just got back into it and your income is under that threshold, then that's an easy $500 the government literally gives you.
Okay, I want to ask you some audience questions, and I've got a few for you. So the first one is, where can I buy a money tree?
Plant it yourself. That's where you that's where it. Plant it yourself. Start investing.
Good answer. Should we be trying to pay off our mortgages or invest whenever we have an increase in our property value?
Yeah, this is the tricky thing with money. It's so personal, and it's depending on what are your goals? What are you trying to achieve as a couple? Do you want to pay off a home? How close to retirement are you? So there's so many different answers, and that's where I really do think sometimes it's worth sitting down with a professional, and you can do one-off fees with professionals and actually go, this is our current situation. What do you think we should do? Because even though that might cost you like a couple of $1,000s to do that, it's going to save you a lot of money in the long term if you get the right advice.
There was quite a few people who asked me about setting up your kids. So we've all got fairly little kids.
Yeah.
We hear a lot about the barefoot investors, steps for kids. What do you think we should be doing for our kids?
Yeah, I mean, I love the barefoot investor, and I have a similar one in my book, like the 3 piggy bank strategy, because I think something you can do as a parent is instill in your kids good financial behaviors and habits, maybe the behaviors and habits you were never taught as a child. So it's about when you get money, it's not about just spending it as fast as possible. It's about putting some towards a goal. It's about, I think he's got like a gratitude one, like you put it to a charity. And then so you've got short-term savings, long-term savings, and then giving. And I love that because I was a spender. And I always say to people, like, what was your first memory of money? Like, do you remember what your first money memory was? For some people, it's getting pocket money. For other people, it might be losing money. It might be being robbed. So for me, I was with a family friend and we got scratchies and I scratched this scratchy and I won $20. And I was like, oh my God, I'm the richest person in the world. I think I was like 7 or something. And I went and spent it all on a dress for my doll. But then what I noticed was like I was growing up and instead of spending money on dolls' dresses, I was spending on, money on just myself. And I was just like, spend. And even though that's when I was 8, I was 25 and still with the exact same behaviors. And just being careful with your language as well. So not it's too expensive, we can't afford it. It's we're choosing not to spend our money there because remember, we're going on that family holiday or you're saving for a bike. So many of us got taught money doesn't grow on trees, can't afford it, we're not wealthy enough. Kids take that on. They go, oh, well, we're not wealthy. And it becomes a scarcity mindset. Actually talk to your kids about money. Like when you pay bills, do it as a family. Explain what's going on. I always use this example of my dad used to get so angry at us when we were kids for leaving the lights on. And I remember him saying it. He's like, yeah, because I go out to work and, I work so hard. And then when you leave the lights on, I see you as wasting my time. And I was like, God, why don't you just explain that to us as kids? Why don't you say like, hey, when you leave a light on, it makes me really upset because I see that as you guys not caring. And that would have been way better than just like yelling at us to not turn the lights on. So I think actually bringing kids in the conversation of money, explaining that ATMs aren't magic money machines from a wall, that, mum and dad had to work or mum or dad and dad had to work really hard to actually make that money. Get them involved in the grocery shops, get them to, compare 2 different types of toilet paper, which one's the best value? And then as far as investing for your kids, like there's a lot of platforms out there now that you can be putting $10 across every week or every month, and it will be going into an investment portfolio for them. So that means it's not just going into one company, it's going to maybe hundreds of companies. So there's a number of ones that do that. So Pearler, Head Start, Raise, Spaceship, StockSpot, a lot of the broker platforms as well, they'll let you invest for your child.
Okay, thank you. Another question was, is it better to put savings into super or into index funds?
So again, that's a big question because your super is invested into the share market. So what I think a lot of people don't realize is your super is already invested. So when I always ask people, I'm like, are you an investor? They'll be like, no, I don't invest. And I'll be like, do you have superannuation? They're like, yeah, I do. I'm like, well, you're an investor because that money
That's so true.
It's not just sitting there in cash. It's invested into lots of different companies. And with your super fund, you get to choose the kind of risk level you want. So the rule of thumb is the younger you are, the more aggressive you can be. So I'm in the most aggressive portfolio I can be in. And the older you get, the more conservative you want to be. And most super funds will have like 5 different options or 4 different options where it's like conservative, a balanced, a growth, and a high growth. So pretty much like low risk, medium, high risk, high risk. And then, so obviously there's a tax advantage to putting it into super because let's say your normal tax rate's like 32 or 34%, you get taxed at 15% in your super, but then also you can't access it until, you hit that retirement age. So again, it comes down to what are you trying to achieve with your money? Are you needing that money for something else? It's a big question. And this is what I find tricky about finance as well. There's not one clear solution, and it's always very specific on your circumstances.
It's so interesting. For me, there's a really clear link between the way that we approach our money for retirement and our health.
Yeah.
So healthy behaviors today are so that we can feel good today, but also so that we can stick around for as long as possible with the people that we love. And health is my space and my great love. But it's a long-term game.
Yeah.
It's so that you can lift your own suitcase when you go traveling when you're in your 70s. It's so that you can play with your grandchildren later. But I think for so many of us, with our health and also with our money, there is a sense of like, well, that's a future me problem. And I'll be so rich by the time I get there. I'll be so successful by the time I get there because I'm working so hard now to make that happen
Yeah.
that I won't need to worry about that. And I know that it's stupid, but I also acknowledge that it happens in me.
I literally had a conversation with a lady today. She's in her 50s. And it's something I've heard a few times. Yeah, I just thought it would work out. I just thought it would work out. And it hasn't. And so I love the comparison between health and wealth because, Casey, how often do you work on your wellness, like your health? Every day?
Every day.
Yeah. How often do you work on your wealth?
Never.
Yeah.
Today. No, ad hoc, like once. Well, I do my quarterly BAS.
That's great.
I do my tax every year. And
they're all really good things. But that's the thing. We work on, we work on our health, but money is a relationship and it's actually one of the longest relationships we'll have in life. And so what happens when you stop working on a relationship? Falls apart.
Falls apart.
So we've just got to be working on it. And I love this kind of concept of money can be your best friend if you want it to be. It can take you on good times. It can give you a good life. It can help you look after your family. It can help you look after your parents. It can be there when the times are tough. Money can be your best friend if you let it. But for so many of us, we're ghosting money. We've got to embrace it and go, no, you're my friend. You're a tool that allows me to do really good things and have a really good life. And instead of ignoring you, I'm going to embrace you. And it's sometimes that mindset shift that really makes a difference.
I love that. Last question, and this came through from a few people. They were like, what's her investment strategy?
Yeah.
And I think they want to know your secret. And I know you told me before we started recording that it's simple, and I love that it's simple because that works for me. So tell us, how do you invest your money?
So I have my goals that I want to hit. But as far as investing in the share market, it's real boring. And I think if you're doing it right, it probably should be quite boring. So I personally, and this is not advice, this is just what I personally do. So I invest into a range of exchange traded funds, index funds. So instead of investing all your money into one company, so like Woolworths or Allcoles or all Tesla or Apple, you invest into an exchange traded fund. So it's lots of different companies in the one unit. So I always use the analogy of a favorites chocolate box. So in a favorite chocolate box, you've got lots of different chocolates. ETF, you've got lots of different companies. And so, you've got ones in Australia. There's over, I think we're at over like 270 different types of ETFs in Australia. But it means you can be invested into international companies. So I've got the top 100 NASDAQ. I've got the top 300 Australian companies. I've got a real mix. And so it's really boring. So every month when I pay myself, I put $500 straight away into some different funds. And that is it. And I just watch the money grow. I get paid dividends. So for me, index funds I've got the best return on ETFs and index funds. So that is my very boring, plain Jane, vanilla strategy.
If somebody listening to this was like, I've heard so many things in this episode and I actually don't know where to start. Yeah. Would you be suggesting that they start with their budget? Where would they begin? Tonight.
So you set up a separate bank account and it's your emergency fund and you put $1,000 in there and then you aim for 3 to 6 months worth of expenses, but you just want to set up an emergency fund first. Is always my first thing I tell anyone to do. Have that money there, emergency money for when life happens, because life will happen and you will need access to money. Then it's actually getting clear on what are your goals. So what do you want to do with your money? And then, working out that budget, because you should be budgeting in your goals. So you should be treating your goals like bills. So if you want to buy that, if you want to save that property deposit, if you want to go on that holiday, if you want to take 6 months off, work out how much you need and then start every paycheck treating your goals like bills and putting money away for that. Otherwise, it will be another year and another year and nothing's changed.
This might be a really dumb question, but do you have to put a financial value on the goal so that you can work towards it? Like, is the goal macro or micro or both?
It's detailed. So dollar amount, deadline details. So find out how much you need for that property deposit. You might be 3 years off, but it's still about talking to that mortgage broker. This is what I need. How much do I need? Like actually getting clear on what is it you need. But if it's also about financial freedom, then that might look different as well. That might be about buying somewhere else that's going to grow in value. So then you can sell that and buy the dream later on. That's why I always say surround yourself with experts, surround yourself with great people who can help you work that out. But yeah, I'd say dollar amount, deadline details, and then work out if that's actually realistic and if it's doable, and check in every month with it.
So my biggest takeaway is probably start where you are.
Yeah.
Really?
Start where you are. Forgive yourself from the past money mistakes you've made. You're doing the best you could with the knowledge you had at the time. Put a line in the sand, and now it's time to move forward.
And that's what Ladies Finance Club is all about. So I'm going to drop all of the details for that into the show notes. Your book is Girls Just Want to Have Funds. Thank you so much for spending some time with me.